In today's show, I'm going to take a look at Tsuri Goshi, the lifting hip throw, and how it differs from Surikomi Goshi and some other hip throws. So if you want to learn more about Tsuri Goshi, stay tuned. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Freestyle Judo. I am Steve Scott, and I hopefully have a good packed show for you today. I always try to, so today is no different. We're going to look at two main things today. We're going to look at Tsuri Goshi, the lifting hip throw, which I believe is one of the core throwing techniques that I've always taught to my students, and maybe you have too. And it's the lifting hip throw. And it differs from Surikomi Goshi. It's sometimes confused for Surikomi Goshi, and it is different from Uki Goshi or Ogoshi. And we try to point those out in some videos today that you'll be seeing here as well coming up. So that is Tsuri Goshi. We'll be looking at that. I've actually 6 videos on tap for that one. So, and they're all short, but I think they explain what I wanted to do. And then I'm going to look at, actually, let's get right into it. First, let's talk about Shingitai. Shingitai, and it's a training philosophy that was first introduced to me by my good friend John Saylor back in 1985, and I thought it was terrific, and I latched onto it right away. And as John explained it to me, and I've looked at it historically and kind of researched this on my own, it's a training philosophy that's been around in Japanese fighting sports and martial arts for probably about 100 years or so, maybe longer, but it's been taught for about that amount of time, and it's a philosophy of shin, mind or spirit, and gi, practical functional technique, and tai, body or physical fitness. So it's a combination of 3 elements of mental and emotional that combine together, and technical and physical. And I really think it covers a wide variety of things. No matter what combat sport you do, Shingitai is a wonderful philosophy to follow. And it is a form of jiu-jitsu in the sense that John Saylor wanted more in his judo than just was out there, more than what was accepted as part of judo. So, he branched off on his own in his Shingitai philosophy and teaching it. And, it is a form of jiu-jitsu by itself. We do issue ranks in Shingitai jiu-jitsu as such, but it's more than that, really. It's more than just a style or one approach. It's an overarching approach to training. And I think it fits in beautifully with Kodokan Judo, Sambo, any other grappling or fighting sport. The Shingitai approach to training and how you look at your training is just fabulous. And I think it's been a real asset, certainly to me in my own development, and also to my athletes. And I practice the Shingitai philosophy every time I walk on the mat, every time I get in front of this microphone or wherever it may be. It's something that you can do too. So anyway, we're going to take a look at the Shingitai philosophy of training. In his own words, I'm going to have John Saylor in quite a few of these clips coming up. So the first clip, let's start at it so you get a good idea what John is talking about. The first clip is a short one. It's just about 2 minutes in length. And several years ago, I was at Perrysville, Ohio, at John's barn in his office, in his business office there, and we were just discussing with some of the other guys in Shingitai the basis of what Shingitai is. So this first little clip, about 2 minutes, has John Saylor, in his own words, describing in a nutshell what Shingitai is.
Got to define Shingitai. It's a word that I first heard from my coach, Yoshisada Yaneska, who we affectionately knew as Yanni. And Yanni just passed away this past October. God rest his soul. He was a great man, a great judo man, a 2-time Olympic coach for the United States, All Japan college judo champion, and was my coach for several years when I moved to New Jersey for a while. Yanni explained it this way. He said, Shin referred to your mind, your heart, your spirit, in other words, fighting spirit. Gi referred to the skill or the art that you're practicing. Tai referred to the body or the physical portion of your training. And Yanni always felt that the person that had those attributes in the right proportions would most often emerge as the winner. And we found that to be very true. And we've always used Shingitai as a checklist for ourselves, as a means of self-examination. In other words, with Shin, you need the mental toughness, the gi, the skill. You got to have skill. You know, you got to have functional skill, from standing, ground fighting, everything. And you've got to have the physical conditioning to go with it. And that's a whole science in itself. And in Shingitai, Jiu-Jitsu, we study all these different areas. In other words, we believe that to win, you've got to outthink your opponent, which is Shin. We believe you've got to out-technique your opponent, gi. And we believe you've got to out-train your opponent, Tai. And, you know, that's it in a nutshell. That's the short version of it, Steve.
John did a really good job. I mean, he's the guy that really introduced it to me, and I think he was very succinct in what he was saying there. In a nutshell, that's what Shingitai is. You know, you outthink your opponent, you out-technique your opponent, and you out-train your opponent. And I think that's the basis of, I think, any successful training. So Shingitai, and I thought he did well at that. So let's take a look at the second video, and it is really something I think is very important, and it's about mastery of skill. And John has done a lot of work in research, in study and teaching into skill mastery. And one of the things that he's really latched onto in some recent years, probably in the last 5-7 years, whatever it was a great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And there are other books out on the market as well, but Outliers really was a good book, and John discusses that book a bit here in this next video here, and he talks about mastering skill, putting in your 10,000 hours of training. And it's not a unique idea to what we're doing, but I think it's a great idea that we sure embrace in our Shingitai training. So I'm going to have John talk a little bit in this next one here about putting in your 10,000 hours in this next clip. So here we go.
He wrote a book called Outliers. Outliers is something that's outside the norm. And in this case, much of the book, he's discussing success, particularly people that have achieved mastery in a number of different fields. And what he found, and here's what's so interesting to us as Shingitai guys, no matter what your martial art discipline or sport or any other discipline, he found that it wasn't so much innate capacity or giftedness, innate talent, being born special somehow, superior genetics. What they all had in common was 10,000 hours of purposeful practice. And when you got up around the 10,000 hour mark, this is when you're looking at your Olympians. These aren't your also-rans. The also-rans usually come in around 6,000, 7,000 hours. People that are mediocre or less than that. And it doesn't matter what your discipline is, put your 10,000 hours in. And now, just briefly, free advice is worth what you pay for it, so you're not paying anything for this, so I'm not sure it's worth anything at all, but my thoughts on it anyway, since it's my house, So anyway, 3 minor thoughts. You need several different abilities. First of all, I think you need the ability to endure fatigue. If you're going to put in 10,000 hours at anything, a physical activity like ours, even if you're doing music, the physical component, the Tai portion comes into it. You got to be healthy enough to withstand 10,000 hours of hard practice. And that's where the Tai element comes in, the body, the physical. And that's why we do training on the mat and off the mat. A lot of auxiliary training off the mat is necessary. You also need the ability to endure boredom. No matter how creative you are or how creative your coaches are, if you're putting in 10,000 hours at anything, you're going to be repeating skills over and over and over again, maybe in different ways, but you're going to be hitting those same skills till you can do them in your sleep, till your coach could come and slap you into consciousness at 3 a.m. in the morning and show me this, and right away you're on it. That requires that you're going to go through some boredom. And finally, I think most important, the people that achieve greatness in anything are those that are willing to endure long periods of time where it appears you're not making any progress at all, or worse, that you're going downhill, that you're actually declining. But the people that persevere through those long periods of time are going to break through and they're going to come out at a higher level than they were before. And it's almost cyclical. That pattern will repeat over and over again until even the low points, if you drew a line through them, they're going to be higher than everybody else. Right? So you got to endure those long periods of time when you're not getting any positive feedback, you think you're actually getting worse or you're declining. And I think those are important things. And this next one may be kind of soft and fuzzy, but I think it's very important. When Sean Doherty and I put our heads together to come up with the motto for the team, we came up with a proverb from the Bible, and later that communist Randy Couture took it also, but I think we had it first. And Sean's wearing it on his
He's just
shirt
kidding,
tonight.
Randy.
It's the proverb, we've been saying it from the start. And it's the spirit that we wanted to instill in our club. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. You know, no great achievement is done by ourselves. There aren't any lone rangers in Shingitai. Instructors help other instructors and other people. We get to camp, we share our knowledge. You know, we help our teammates. Jigoro Kano said, you know, mutual benefit and welfare, right? Well, we took a proverb from the Bible. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. You know, yeah, we may be competing each other, but we're trying to make each other better.
Okay, I think that really quite well describes our approach to Shingitai. It's a blue collar. It's a nitty gritty approach to it. You know, you're not born great. You know, maybe some people think you are. I think you have to work to be great. And an old phrase that, you know, I've used in my club for many years: champions are made; they're not born. And I think that's the way it is in success in any phase of life. So I think John talked about that quite a bit there. And this last one, John is talking about a key element of confronting your weaknesses as an athlete, or in whatever walk of life it is, but certainly we're talking about training in combat sports right now, in judo, sambo, whatever it may be. And I did a little clip. I interviewed him a few years ago outside his barn. And just an amusing note, John is an animal lover, and we were right outside on his porch on the barn, and one of his mini cats was crawling up the steps behind. So in the very first of the clip, look for one of his cats up there. And so I thought it was kind of funny. But it's a great video on what John is describing as confronting your weaknesses and how to overcome them. So let's take a look at that right now. I'm here in Perrysville, Ohio at the Shingitai training camp with my good friend and colleague of many years, John Saylor. And I wanted to just interview him a little bit and have him kind of expand on some of the training methodology he's used over the years. And John, I guess the question it's a good generic question. Any advice you have for aspiring young fighters that would want to come up? Any athletes that what they might want to do?
Well, there's so many different types of fighting styles. You know, there's a lot of grappling events right now. I know you coach judo and jiu-jitsu, so maybe we should discuss the grappling events a little bit.
Okay.
And not so much the striking arts. You know, when kids train for, young folks train for grappling, a lot of times they go out and they just roll, you know, and they go out and do randori or live grappling of some sort. But and that's good. You know, getting a lot of mat time is good. But eventually, I'm not sure that they're always confronting their weaknesses. And one thing I used to do, I encourage guys to do live grappling quite a bit, but I also encourage three things. Number one, to drill against an opponent, much like you would do standing drills, where you do repetitions of a standing throw, for example, or a standing takedown. We would do the same thing in grappling against minimal resistance at first. So you're getting repetitions of a skill. And, you know, you get a core skill built up that way through constant repetitions against minimal resistance. And you start developing a series of support techniques around it for when the guy defends that core skill. So that would be number one. Number two, then we start, the guy's starting to get some skills in each of the positions. And then you start to introduce the live grappling, you know, or you go, you know, with a resisting opponent. And that's good, back and forth. You can do that at various percentages. You could go 50%, 60%, 70%, 100%.
Total cooperation.
Yeah.
How far along do you think? You don't want you want total opposition, or how would you gauge that?
Yeah, you know, those percentages are subjective judgments.
Right.
You know, about like at 50%, it's kind of like minimal resistance drilling, almost like freestyle drilling almost. You know, If the guy's in a good position, you let him have it. You just keep rolling. You can do that kind of training for long periods of time, half hour to an hour straight, you know.
Right.
But eventually, as contest gets closer, you want to divide it into shorter rounds of higher intensity. You know, so you do that. And, you know, the live grappling is number 2 of the equation. Number 3 of the equation is doing situation drills. So, for example, if I see on a Saturday tournament, or for example, that you get beat with, say, you know, a triangle choke or a crossbody arm lock, say, you know, say the opponent takes your arm and defeats you with crossbody arm lock. Guess where we're going to start Monday night at practice?
Right.
You know, you're going to put the guy in that situation where the fighter that's being attacked is able to keep his arm in, and the other guy gets the underhook with both legs over top. And on the signal, the offensive guy is trying to get the arm straightened out, and the minute he gets straightened out, that's the point. And we stop it. Now, you may have to show the guy a couple defenses against crossbody arm lock, or ju-jitsu, but then put him right back in that situation. Say, go. You know, and this is not popular stuff.
Right.
You know, if a guy gets choked out, say somebody takes his back and chokes him out, well, guess where we start Monday night?
Right.
Choke defense.
Right.
You know, maybe the guy's on top of you with both hooks sunk in. He's allowed to have one arm across, and on the signal, the top guy's allowed to bring both hands into play. Bottom guy's got to defend this. You know, he's got to defend against the choke. When he feels it's possible, maybe he moves a hook out, pulls the guy over top. You know, we'll work on defense.
Right.
But by putting your fighter there over and over again, pretty soon he gets to be streetwise. And if you're one of the athletes that's out there training, I encourage you to do situation drills. You can make up hundreds of them. You know, see what happens to what your weaknesses are in randori. If you're getting caught with certain submissions in randori, put yourself in those submissions. If you have a good coach or a trusted friend, a better fighter than yourself, ask questions. You know, how do you defend against crossbody arm lock? How do you defend against lapel choke? Or if it's no-gi, you know, put yourself in a triangle choke or something like that, and learn defenses. You know, it's invaluable. You can also do it with all the hold downs, fight out of unfavorable positions. And that's really good at practice too. If you're a more skilled opponent, and the guys at your club that night, for example, aren't as skilled as you, what do you get by rolling live with them?
That's right.
You know, have them get you in unfavorable positions and learn to fight their way out. And I think that has great value.
Well, that offers a lot of structure to the training as well.
It does. You know?
Well, anyway, you know, I just wanted to spend just 5 or 6 minutes here, and hopefully as the years go on, we do a few more of these. I know we posted recently a lot of good drills and skills we did at this year's training camp.
Right.
And today's May 19th, 2013.
Right.
So we had a great two-day session here at the Shingitai training camp. Every spring, every May, here in Perrysville, Ohio, isn't it?
That's it.
So
try to make it.
Try to make it. It's worth
next year.
It's a great deal, and it's the best training camp in the country. It really is. So.
Well, I'm biased, but I think so too.
I think so too.
I think so too.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks.
Again, if you want some information on Shingitai, I flashed it on the screen there earlier, and I'll have it up over my shoulder here. You can contact John there's his telephone number as well as his email address. You can get a hold of him. We do have a great camp every year in May in Perrysville, Ohio. That's where John lives, and that's where his barn is. But he rents a school, a Christian school next door for training, and it's a nice big mat area, so it's a good mat. And we do a great job every year. John runs it every year, and I come and help volunteer and coach, and a lot of other guys do too. But if you want to be involved in 2019, our training camp will be May 17th and 18th in Perrysville, Ohio. And again, you can get information here by either calling John or contacting him by way of email. So that's so much for that. But you know, the Shingitai philosophy, you don't have to be a member of our Shingitai organization. You don't have to say that's your style of jiu-jitsu or whatever. Sure, John would love to have more members in his organization, of course, but still, it's a great overarching philosophy. And it's hard to describe to people. They say, well, what style of jiu-jitsu do you do? Well, I do Shingitai, Now I've done other styles of jiu-jitsu as well, but the Shingitai is kind of, it's kind of hard to describe to somebody in a short blurb, in quick bullet points. But it is an overarching philosophy. So I think if you use it, no matter what your combat sport, you can use Shingitai, and I think it's something that everybody should. So that's why I wanted to introduce it to you here on the show, and hopefully you'll follow up and contact John Saylor about that. I know it's a shameless commercial plug for his organization, but I'm a firm believer, and I'm a long-time member of it. So there we go. All right, let's take a look now at Tsuri Goshi. Tsuri Goshi is, Tsuri means to lift or to suspend or hang something, lifting it upward, and Goshi is hip. And the idea is you're lifting them up and over your hip. Your hip's the fulcrum, so like any hip throw. So, but there's a little bit of difference here in Tsuri Goshi as to some of the other forms of hip throws. And that's what I wanted to do in what I wanted to talk about in these series of videos that are coming up. I've actually got 6 short videos, but there's 6 of them, and we're going to hit Tsuri Goshi pretty thoroughly here in this episode of Freestyle Judo. But a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but some people mistake Tsuri Goshi for Tsuri Goshi, and they're very different in many ways. They still throw over the hip. You still throw your opponent over the hip's the fulcrum, the axis of the throw. But how you use your hands is differently. How the handwork is different. In Tsuri Goshi, it's more of a lifting motion, and Tsuri Goshi, it's a lifting pulling action, and it's where the hands are placed on your partner, your uke. And you'll see in the first clip where it's a very short one, by the way, I kind of show the differences. Well, actually, in the second clip, I should say, the first clip kind of gives you an idea what Tsuri Goshi is about. The second clip, I talk about the differences between Tsuri Goshi and Tsuri Goshi. So, without getting any more confused, let's go ahead and watch the first clip on Tsuri Goshi. And the emphasis here is Tsurite, the lifting hand, is what makes it Tsuri Goshi. So, let's take a look at Tsuri Goshi, the very first clip here. Tsuri Goshi means, Tsuri means to lift, or to suspend something, pick it up, hang it like this, to lift it. Okay, Tsuri, T-S-U-R-I. And Goshi is hip, so it's lifting hip throw. So when you're working it, and you're working your gripping, a really good smart way to do it is with your right hand, reach around the upper arm and grab a handful of jacket. Or the belt, but the jacket really is a good tool to grab there, okay? Now, what he's going to do is that's a standard hip throw, pretty much. But he's going to, as he's pulling, and everybody comes around here, the left hand, remember in Japanese we call it the hikite, the pulling hand, okay, the sleeve hand. The other hand is, the steering hand, the power hand, the tsurite, the lifting hand. And this is where it gets the name, Tsuri Goshi. So as he's pulling here quite a bit, he's also, as he comes in, he's going to be lifting quite a bit with his hand on the back, and he's going to come in and toss him over his hips. So just go ahead and toss him. Okay, so what we're going to show here also is as Derek attacks, as he comes in, he's constantly pulling up with that right hand. The right hand pulls upward and to him, sucking him in. Grab there, and he comes in. And it's a lot of pulling. It's a lot of lifting hip throw, because you're lifting him up, okay? And again, it's with this hand is really important. This is your pulling hand, but you also have the same actions like this, lifting. And that's what Derek's doing here. He's lifting and he's turning and he's throwing, okay? All right, you saw that Tsurite, the lifting hand, it's a very active part of the throw. It's not just grasping my opponent to his body to my body. It's actually an active part of the lifting action of the throw. So and that's why I like it as a core technique, because it really does teach my students to use both hands in their throwing, and to be active, and they work their hands independently, but as a team together to make this throw happen. So Tsuri Goshi, I think that's why it's a core technique. Okay, now the second clip is what I was alluding to earlier, in that there's a difference between Tsuri Goshi and Tsuri Goshi. And it's about a 30-second clip or so, and I voice over on it. It's a silent one, but I voice over, and I hope the sound comes through okay. But it really is a different throw between Tsuri Goshi and Tsuri Goshi. And in Tsuri Goshi, and I'll explain it in the video, in Tsuri Goshi, you grab, your hand is down, your elbow is up, and you're lifting with it quite a bit. It's around the back somehow, his backside. That's where you grip. And in Tsuri Goshi, you're gripping his lapel along the line of his pectoral region there, along the line of his chest, and lifting and pulling it upward like that. So there is a difference. So let's watch this very 33-second clip on the difference between Tsuri Goshi and Surikomi Goshi. In this short video, I just want to take a look at the differences between Tsuri Goshi and Surikomi Goshi. And Tsuri Goshi is when you're using your surite, your lifting hand, and you're grabbing around his back somehow. Your elbow is up, your hand is down, and you're lifting with that hand. Again, that's the surite. And in the Surikomi Goshi, the right hand, the surite is hand up, elbow down along the pectoral side of the body, grabbing the lapels. That's the big difference between these two often confused techniques. Okay, I think that shorty clip there described it pretty good, and so you can see there is a difference between those two throws. Later on, we're going to talk about the difference between Tsuri Goshi and Ogoshi and Uki Goshi as well, so stay tuned for that in just a few moments here. The next clip I'm going to show is Tsuri Goshi. The Tsuri Goshi is divided basically into an Tsuri Goshi, major lifting hip, and Tsuri Goshi, minor, smaller lifting hip. And that's how you grab them. And in Tsuri Goshi, you grab around his shoulder, you trap his arm, you might grab over his shoulder, but you're grabbing down the line of the back at the judo gi or the belt. And in Tsuri Goshi, you're grabbing under his arm instead of over or around his arm. So this first video shows, it's another short one, by the way, Tsuri Goshi, major lifting hip throw. You got your normal grip here, all right? Now, what Derek has started with this. He's got a standard lapel, or not the lapel, but sleeve grip here, okay, standard here. And the backhand, turn around here so everybody can see this. What he's done, two options, or several options. I like to grab around the guy's deltoid, or the shoulder, the bicep area here, the upper arm, and trap this in. See how he's got a good, strong grip? And he could also grab the belt if he chose, okay? But you're grabbing some part of the jacket or belt, all right? Now, if he's taller or the guy's bent over a lot, he can reach over the shoulder and have the same effect. So he's still grabbing here and can still come in and do this type of thing, okay? I don't like to reach over, just kind of reach over, lunge, just stand up, like you come in and hit him with an urinal. See, boom. Don't come running in and charging him, reaching over the top. That's not a smart thing to do because he will counter you. So when you're working it, and you're working your gripping, a really good smart way to do is with your right hand, reach around the upper arm and grab a handful of jacket. Or the belt, but the jacket really is a good tool to grab there, okay? Now, what he's going to do is that's a standard hip throw, pretty much, but he's going to, as he's pulling, and everybody comes around in the left hand, remember in Japanese we call it the hikite, the pulling hand, okay, the sleeve hand. The other hand is, the steering hand, the power hand, the surite, the lifting hand. And this is where it gets the name, Tsuri Goshi. So as he's pulling here quite a bit, he's also, as he comes in, he's going to be lifting quite a bit with his hand on the back, and he's going to come in and toss him over his hips. So just go ahead and toss him. That's the Tsuri Goshi, major. And you see that's the most common one you'll see. That's the more popular form. Tsuri Goshi is the one most people refer to simply as Tsuri Goshi. It's the more popular of the two applications. However, Tsuri Goshi is used quite a bit as well, and some people may even mistake it for an Uki Goshi or an Ogoshi in how it's applied. So we'll be showing that. We're going to show the next video, by the way, is going to be the basic Tsuri Goshi. It's quite short, but it shows quite quickly what Tsuri Goshi is. It's grabbing around the waist under the arm. So let's take a look at Tsuri Goshi. Tsuri Goshi, the minor, Ko is minor, you grab pretty much around the waist. It looks very much like an Ogoshi, but he's grabbing the jacket or the belt. Whatever a good handle is, you grab it, okay? Could be the belt, could be the jacket, doesn't matter. But you're grabbing under the arm and around the waist. And then it looks a lot like an Ogoshi or an Uki Goshi, floating, straddling hip throw. So just come in and toss them. And that's Tsuri Goshi. I think that showed it pretty well with the difference between Tsuri Goshi and Tsuri Goshi. It's where you grab either under the arm or around the arm or over the arm. So that's the difference. Let's take a look now at the difference between Tsuri Goshi and Ogoshi and ukigoshi, and they're often mistaken for each other, and it's common, you know, and I probably do it as much as anybody, but there are differences, and I'll try to point them out here. Again, these are all short clips, these videos, but they will discuss in this one the difference between Tsuri Goshi and Ogoshi and Ukigoshi. So let's take a look at that right now. Like in Ogoshi, I'm locking his hip to mine, and then I turn him. And even with the Ukigoshi, floating him, I'm still kind of locking, okay? With a Tsuri Goshi, I'm helping with this hand, my right hand is helping lift and dish. It's lifting upwards and into the direction of the throw. So do both Tsuri Goshi again. Now watch what he does is, his right hand is going to come in and he lifts. Not only is he pulling with his left hand, his right hand, they're kind of going in the same direction. And that's what the Tsuri Goshi movement is about. Now in that clip, I hope I did a good enough job explaining how in Ogoshi, you grab your opponent or your uki's hip and trap his hip to your body and lock it onto your body in place and then make your turn and throw him. Ukigoshi, you do pretty much the same thing, except you glide across the body and you actually use the hip placement on you're grabbing and trapping his hip as you're stepping in and throwing him. Now that's Ogoshi and Ukigoshi, and you saw the difference dramatically actually between that or those actions of trapping your opponent's hip to your body and then grabbing around him and lifting his hip into the throw as you step in. So there is a dynamic movement difference there in how it happens. So it's, again, they're all hip tosses and hip throws, and someone, you know, the untrained eye may say, well, it's all the same throw, what's the big difference? Well, you know, technically there is a difference, and I think it should be noted, and if you want to do them correctly and with high degree of skill on a good rate of success, I think you should know these differences. So that's really what the difference between Tsuri Goshi, Ogoshi, and Ukigoshi. All right, in this final video, we're going to talk about a practical application of Tsuri Goshi that one of my really great athletes many years back, Sean Watson, and hello, Sean, by the way, hope you're doing well in Honolulu. He is a police officer in Honolulu now. Excuse me for my coughing. And he was very successful in his judo career. He's pretty good at sambo, too. But he had a variation of, we just called it Uki Tsuri Goshi, or at least I did. And it was kind of a combination of Ukigoshi, Tsuri Goshi. And again, that's where a lot of these throws blend together, and you can use elements of both into the final product. And just like I say in the video, no matter what you call it, just call it a pawn. It's one of those type of techniques. So it's, and in this, also look at how, and I hope I bring it out well enough in the video, how when you're grabbing with your hand at his kidney area or his back area when you're doing this version of Tsuri Goshi, that you're steering with that hand, with that Tsurite. You're actually steering with it instead of not just lifting with it. So it's the lifting action and steering is very much part of this throw. So we're going to take a look. It's a bit longer than the others, but it's a practical application and something I just call Uki Tsuri Goshi, just my own nomenclature. Call it that if you wish. But it's a combination of Uki Goshi and certainly a lot of Tsuri Goshi. So let's take a look at that right now. Pick this up really from Sean Watson, one of the really good athletes at Welcome Back. And it's a good counter grip into a very aggressive Uki Tsuri Goshi, whatever you want to call it, just call it a pawn type thing. It's really good. I'm going to start with Derek. I'm going to have him do it on Eric here. A lot of times when we're gripping, it's really aggressive gripping, and this is where it's a good idea to be able to go left and right in this move, because if he's a righty, most guys are right-handed fighters, so it's a good idea to develop left-handed skills in this move. Just be real honest with you. So if we're gripping here, and he keeps me on the grip, he gets a grip here, and he's really dominating here. Or he could even have it around here. I'm kind of, my arms are shot. I can't do anything with it. What I want to do is I want to, instead of blocking out, where I'm obviously passive and not aggressive, I want to get this grip here, just above the belt, right about the kidney area on this side of the spine. Just hold it there. Just lock it in. Now, that stops him from moving. We're gripping, we're fighting, I'm moving around and all this. Okay? Now, I want to make sure my hip gets on the inside of my left hip on the inside of his right hip. So I'm going to shape that in. So once I get this grip and we're fighting here, I've got this. I make sure
there I'm leading there. I'm not way out here. I'm out of space. I'm out of distance. It's really important. Grip fighting is not just gripping with your hands and your whole body. So here we are like this on the inside. Now, as soon as I do this, and I'm on the inside, see how I'm kind of beating this hip on the inside there? You got this grip here. You want a low grip here. So as soon as you start working a low grip, now what you're going to do, don't grab up here because he won't let you have it. But if you kind of pop it down here, he's thinking, oh, he may start to pull away, and as he does that, he's just walking into it. It's helping you a lot. Keep it low here and here. See the grip we've got? See the setup grip? Okay? Now, what I'm going to do, it's a lot of hand work on this, a lot of hand movement. So it's kind of a teiwaza or hand technique in that sense too. So when I step in, as I'm going to step in, I'm going to shift sideways into him, and I'm just going to start wheeling with my hands as well. But it's a hip throw. And Sean has a very nice hip throw, and he's not concerned whether he has a fairly wide grip on his posture here with his feet or close. But in any event, he moves across the side and he tosses. So it's kind of a Tsuri Goshi in that he spins and lifts. So it's just kind of across here, shoot, and spin, throw him over. And you can make it to a Harai Goshi, you know, Uchimata. Some guys who are Tayotoshi guys will do Tayotoshi, they'll take it. Whatever you want to end up with, just make sure you get that hip across it. Okay. So watch the situation. See there, and he gets that low grip, and he comes in, he shoots in, tosses. So he gets that low grip, see that low sleeve grip, shoots in.
And again, I give full credit to Sean Watson for kind of working that out. Now, other people may have done the same thing, but it was Sean that really talked to me quite a bit when he was using this quite a bit in his judo career with great success. That right hand that he grabs the kidney area with, you know, the side of the hip, just above the hip area of his opponent, he uses that to like steer, and he kind of keeps him at bay and until he's ready to attack, and he closes the space with his hips when he does that. And you can do it sidestepping, pulling him in. It really worked well for Sean when he stepped across his opponent's body as he came into the throw. So I think we kind of showed in the video there. So it's a good application, very practical application of Tsuri Goshi, in this case, Tsuri Goshi. But again, Tsuri Goshi has many variations, many applications. You can use it Harai Goshi, certainly Uchimata, a lot of other throws that you can use as your base, as your core, your fundamental technique to set something up. And a lot of very high-level athletes in judo, sambo, no matter what the sport, have used a standard Tsuri Goshi, either Tsuri Goshi or Tsuri Goshi, as their go-to move as a big throw for ippon. So Tsuri Goshi has a lot of benefits to doing it, and I think it's one of those underappreciated techniques. So that's what I wanted to highlight today. It's certainly one of my favorite techniques. So so much for Tsuri Goshi. Okay, just some shameless plugs here for some books. First of all, buy my book, The Judo Advantage. It is available on Amazon and at YMAA Publishing, their website. So get The Judo Advantage. I'm proud of that book. It's the biomechanics of how and why judo works. And of course, when I talk about judo, I'm including all the grappling sports, all the martial arts that rely on grappling, throwing, ground fighting, whatever it may be. So the Judo Advantage. And here, let me shoot that up there real quick. Okay, there was the little graphic of that, so you saw the cover. So please buy that. I'm old and I need your money. No, just kidding. All right, another book that John Saylor and I did. We did several books together. And one is out of print. Let me throw that up there. Look at that right now. It's a great book on conditioning. All right, you saw that little quick graphic there. It's out of print, unfortunately, and I'm sorry to do that to tease you, but it's conditioning for combat sports. And I must say, John is one of the leading guys that I certainly know in any martial art, but especially in judo and jiu-jitsu, on physical conditioning, fitness, periodization of training, all aspects of training, in addition to his technical expertise. So that book was a good one, and there may be some point in the future we get it back into print in a little different format. I think there's some things we'd like to do that are a little differently, but that was a pretty good seller for Turtle Press when they were still in business printing those type of books. So anyway, if you have that copy, please refer to it. John and I are quite proud of it. Another book he and I did together is called Vital Jiu-Jitsu. Let me get that up here right now. And you can get Vital Jiu-Jitsu at our Welcome Mat online store. It's pretty good, it's not real expensive, and it really does detail quite a bit in our philosophy, and certainly John's philosophy, and I've glommed onto it, but our Shingitai approach to training. And it certainly has a lot of stuff. It has a lot of techniques in there, too, a lot of submission, a lot of things that John and I really like to work on. And it is a good little book. No matter if you're doing jiu-jitsu, sambo, judo, whatever it may be, Vital Jiu-Jitsu, again, my shameless plug, but it is a good book, and I don't have many copies of that left. So if you want to get one, go up there to our online store and buy it. And Derek keeps that in stock pretty good, so we hope you get it. All right, let's go on to a question and answer section here. I've a good question, and I'm going to devote a show to this at some point in the future. But the question is this: why do judo people use Japanese terminology? And I think that's a common question. It came from a novice person who emailed me, and that's a good question because he's having struggling learning the Japanese nomenclature. And I often say one of the toughest things about learning judo is learning the Japanese nomenclature, I think. So it's and it's probably true for everybody, but it's a good way, in my opinion. The Japanese terminology is a good way to keep things in order, as it were. It's two primary purposes. It gives the Japanese terminology does a pretty good job, actually, giving descriptive names to the technical skills and all the movements and the philosophies of what we do in judo and jiu-jitsu as well. And that's the number one thing. And number two, it's internationally used. I remember one time I was in Sweden conducting a seminar, and I don't speak a word of Swedish, and some of those people spoke English, but many didn't. And when I was showing Taiotoshi, I said Taiotoshi, everybody knew Taiotoshi was going to be shown. Okay, so it's the international language of judo, certainly. And it's something that never caught on, say, in sambo, because I dearly love sambo. Although some people use the Russian nomenclature, it's still not used to the wide degree to describe things in sambo the way the Japanese is used to describe things in judo. And I think it would be an asset if they did that, actually, because I look at the use of judo, or at least of the Japanese terminology in judo, much like in the law practice, in the field of law, attorneys learned Latin, their legal terms in Latin, and same with the medical areas, that, they're Latin terms that are used. And it describes, the action accurately of what goes on, and it's an international language that can be used and translated. So if in law, if it says it in Latin, they mean that. So, and same with what we say in judo too. So it is very good and descriptive of the technical names. And it was actually, it caught on because Jigoro Kano himself, Dr. Kano himself, was an educator, and he saw the important need for naming things. Things have more importance to us when we give them names. So instead of just calling something the monkey flip or the whatever it may be, if you have a specific name for it that's descriptive, and everybody uses that same name, and everybody knows it, uses it, and it describes what goes on. As I say, it's descriptive. It gives it some validity. So things that are important, we name. Like you have a name, I have a name. We were important to our parents, at least to the point where they gave us a name, and that's the same with techniques. And I think that's a good way to put it. You don't have to speak Japanese fluently. I certainly don't speak Japanese, but I am a geek on this stuff. I don't speak Japanese, but I had an instructor who did. And my first sensei, Jerry Sweat, was a fluent Japanese speaker. He lived in Japan for a period of time. He was a black belt in both judo and aikido. In the old days, he was very good at both. And he really taught me the importance of using the Japanese terminology for reference. And I think that's a great, best way to put it. It is great reference to use the Japanese terminology. So without saying too much more and being boring about it, and again, I'm going to devote a show to the Japanese terminology at some point in the future. But I think that's a good description of why we use Japanese terminology. It's an international language for judo, and it does describe, in many cases, some cases it doesn't. Some of the older names from the old Kito-ryu Jiu-Jitsu or other forms of Jiu-Jitsu, the names were retained in some few cases, but generally it's descriptive of what the action is or the philosophy is of what you're doing. So that's why we use the Japanese terminology. I think it's a great question. One, it's often asked. And, I think, again, as an instructor, as a coach, I teach it along as my students progress in their learning development. And I think it's important to know that along the whole line of their career that they use it. So it really is important. So there you go on Japanese terminology. Okay, so that wraps up the show today. I tried to cover as much as I could in a short amount of time and not yap on too much. I do appreciate you viewing in, and please tell others about our show. Please tell others about our website up here, or I should say my YouTube channel, and visit us often on our Facebook platforms. We have a lot of stuff going on there. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you next time.